Hi. On this particular upload, I wish to talk about two incidences, two encounters of many varied encounters I've had during my lifetime, my life cycle. The first one is a NDE, a near-death experience, which happened off the Albanian coastline. I was on holiday in Corfu at the time, and I decided 2 or 3 days later on holiday to go on a barbecue trip, as most people do. And this barbecue trip ended up on the coastline of Albania, where something like 200 or 300 Thompson holiday makers get out their little barbies, provided for, of course, and drunk themselves to death. Ouzo power. So on this day, with a friend, Kev Turton, and others I'd met on holiday, as one does, we travelled on this barbie boat, which was issuing out ouzos, those dishwater. Lovely drop of stuff. I got rather drunk before reaching the coastline and jumped off the ship, the boat. Swam about 200 yards, sat there and then waited for the boat to come in and moor itself, by which time I didn't fare very well, not with the pursuing heat and the ouzo I had drunk. My friends got off the boat and said, "You don't know very well, Tom, you look green." And I said, "I don't feel well. I'm going to sit down in the water over there." They said, "Is that a good idea?" And I said, "Well, I can't think of anything better at the moment to cool down." So I went over to the water and I sat down in the water. It was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet deep. I kind of collapsed trying to sit down. I felt like jelly. Everything had went. And I passed out under the water. My friends ran over and dragged me out. My heart stopped, I believe, and luckily for me a nurse came over and gave me the kiss of life. And I must have coughed up half the Greek Ocean. I was still unconscious when they put me on a motorboat that the Thompson representative at the time had organised by a mobile. Me and Kev jumped on the motorboat, or I lifted on the motorboat, I should say, and we made our way along the coastline, me still unconscious. All of a sudden I awoke, shouted ouzo power, and smacked the pilot of the boat, the driver, completely out. The boat spun around, as motorboats do, speedboats, and began to traverse towards some rocks. And Kev's thoughts at the time was, we're going to blow up, we've had it. Fortunately, the co-pilot of this speedboat then knocked me back out and managed to grab the steering just in time before it hit the rocks. So we finally got to our destination. An ambulance was waiting for me. I was put in the ambulance, and for about 30 minutes ride we were taken up to an Albanian hospital, upon which I awoke with plastic pipes up my nostril, both nostrils, which is obviously oxygen. And I looked at Kev. I was obviously knackered and not very well. Kev said, "How do you feel?" I said, "Not very well, mate. I don't think I'm going to last." And before I blacked out, I said to Kev, "Give my love to Mum, my dad and brother and sister. I just can't take any more. I've had so many strange experiences, and that's it." So I passed out, kind of, and the following is what I saw, quite clearly, and I was not at all frightened, more inquisitive. Such is my soul. In an infinite blackness, in the darkness of space and time, I saw numerous hundreds of blue stars, 4-pointed blue stars, just blue, all over the place, just suddenly appeared. These stars then opened up, and out of them came females. Well, if you can call them females. Females between 30 and 80 year old in human nature. From the waist down there was white plumes of smoke which went and trailed all the way back as vapour to each individual star. So each of these females had from the waist down a white plume of vapour of smoke trailing back to each of their stars. The top body, the torso, to the head and the face and arms was a transparent green, and a green mist within. They all had long nails, very sharp talons in fact, and long white hair flowing from the head down to the back. When 2 or 3 of these beings came close to me, I then observed that their eyes were spherical, as was the mouth. Their eyes were inky blackness. There was no pupils, just absolute blackness. When they opened their mouths, there was no teeth, no tongue, just another state of inky blackness. There was no sound, no audible guttural speech, and no telepathic communication, as I've had in UFO encounters. And as they came closer, they kind of waved their arms, and then I woke up, and Kev was looking above me. He'd been sitting beside me in the hospital bed in Albania. And I was sweating, obviously, drenched in sweat. And he said, "How are you?" I said, "Not very good." An Albanian nurse and doctor came in and injected me with, I don't know what it was, some kind of medicine to kill anything I may have drunk in the ocean. Perhaps penicillin, which I'm very highly allergic to anyway. And fortunately or fortunately, I passed over again and had exactly the same experience of these 30 to 8-year-old female beings flying out of blue stars and coming up towards me. This time, in my mind, rather than my brain, I perceived that was it, and I'd be taken away, because they came flying with their arms forward, as if to grab me. Again they waved their arms, and I woke up again. This time I remained on this earthly plane, talking to Kev. And much later in the day, I was actually allowed to go home, well, back to Corfu via the ferry. This and many other very strange experiences, including abduction and the following, were actual scenarios, actual parts of my life. And to those out there, the clever few, the ignorant few, I shall say, as I've always said, online, directly to you, I do not take drugs at any form, and I do not believe in taking any drugs. I've had jobs as a technician in breweries, 2 breweries in fact, installation of beer, gas pressurised electronic dispensers, 10 years in the Navy Reserves, which I got very good commendation, 10 years as a postman, and so on. So, to be honest, I'm pretty intelligent. So this second scenario happened when I was 28. An entity rather than a demon. A demon, you see, when it inhibits the form of a human, can actually control the members, can actually alienate, move things about, as seen in The Exorcist, The Omen, and other strange films like that. Well, when the demon's inside, it prefers to stay inside. Live on the essences from the blood and, believe it or not, the soul from the vibrating flame within. And so the human form begins to rot and quiver and die. However, in this particular instance, with this grey witch girlfriend called Lynn, I'm obviously not going to mention her surname online, Lynn, who lived in Notting Hill Gate in London, told me she was possessed in various occasions, so I had to watch out. I have been an occultist deeply involved since I was 17, but I've seen a ghost at 6, experienced other things at 4, so that's been a constant panorama of great fun, if that's what you want to call it. So going back to this occasion, when I was in Lynn's flat, her parents were working away quite a bit. It was 8:45 AM in the morning, and yes, we had just made love. Had a good jolly sexual time, you know, as you do. She was lying on top of me, and the sunlight, the rays of the sun was going through the window. Lovely setting. Lynn said, "Tom, can you read your tarot cards? Because I'm good at reading tarot, and I don't charge for it. It's a gift. Anybody that charges for anything like that are charlatans." So I picked my cards up, my tarot cards. But as I was about to open them out of the pack, Lynn suddenly changed. I looked first at her eyes, and her beautiful blue ocean-like eyes began to revolve, and I mean roll over. It was not delusional, and as I've stated, I don't take drugs. And no, she hadn't put anything in any drinks. Why should you want to do that? So, her eyes rolled over. The ocean blue eyes then were a demonic, fiery red eyes like burning coals. Out of her mouth, then I heard the guttural speech of, "I want your soul. I want your soul." A male, malevolent, terrible voice. Dark, sinister. Her mouth then touched my mouth, and her tongue, which I can assure you is a normal sized tongue for a female, then extended to probably a foot in length, and it wrapped around the root of my own tongue at the back of my throat and began to choke me to death. Believe you me, I did think I was dying. I could only administer strength and power from my occult experiences, previous experiences, and telepathically told this being, this entity, to leave her, that I was far too strong and it could not gain power over me. And I called on a higher archangel, Michael. Just before I passed out, and if I had passed out I would have been dead because I could not breathe, the tongue then curled and went back into her mouth, her throat. The mechanism had gone. Her eyes then rolled back to her beautiful blue eyes, and Lynn fell on my right hand shoulder, crying her eyes out. Neither of us spoke for a few minutes, 3 or 4. Then she looked at me and said, "I'm sorry," crying her eyes out again. She said, "I told you I was possessed." That happened to me when I was 28. I'm now 60. Such experiences, in my opinion, to people like me, don't send you bananas. What they do is, it's an inquisitiveness, it's a kind of interest. That sounds crazy, but it isn't. I'm here for a reason. So that's 2 experiences. I shall upload more later. Thank you very much. Richard Thompson.